Hello friends, welcome back. In previous videos, we upgraded our Vim to 9.0 version. We learned Vim key bindings and learned about TMUX terminal multiplexer basics. We also covered how to set up Vim configuration and Vim plugin. In this video, we'll take a deeper dive and we'll set up Vim as an IDE, like VS Code, Android Studio, or Emacs. So what is an IDE anyway? In my opinion, there are some features and functionalities which extend the behavior of an editor, makes an IDE. So for example, in your right hand side of the screen, as you can see, a built terminal, a great debugger, linting, syntax checks, go to definition, auto completion, go to references, show method signature, going to references. That's what, if you take any good code editor and deploy these features, that's what makes a good editor a great IDE. So in this section, what we are going to do, we are going to set up Vim as an IDE, and we are going to use our plugin system and some other Vim configuration to implement this feature so that we can use our Vim system as an IDE. I'm sure you must have used a great IDE system like Xcode, Android Studio, Emacs, etc. So why Vim? So in my opinion, Vim on the other hand is no doubt is the greatest code editor, but it needs some work to be set up as an IDE system. I want to remind you that one size doesn't fit all. So there is no one magic wand or one plugin for all programming languages. I'm going to demonstrate how I'm using my plugin systems to code for web and data science programming languages. Now, setting up these plugins may seem to be a hassle first, especially if you're comparing this with Android Studio or Xcode setup, but definitely is a very rewarding experience later on. And in a way, it's no different than setting up because all of these code editors use LSP system, which we are going to cover those later. So first, let's start with HTML plugin. So for HTML, my favorite plugin is a plugin called Vim. I will cover basics of this plugin, but if you want to learn more about this, please Google this plugin and you can find entire documentation at their GitHub repository. This plugin allows users to create their own snippets, which save a lot of HTML code typing. All right, so let's install this now. So I'm going to head out to my .vimrc file and find where my plugins are installed, and I'm going to add this line, plug /emet-vim. So if you press P, all right, let me save this, or maybe just to :plugin install. Plug install, hit enter. All right, as you can see, this plugin is now installed. So now let me show you, there are a couple of other settings you need to be aware of. Again, go through the documentation to see all those things in detail. By default, I have included 3 of their settings. So let me copy paste those settings. And basically what these settings does, that by default the /emet-vim plugin is active on all the modes, which you do not want. You want only this to be active in the normal mode, that is command mode. And there are a couple of other settings. So I'm just going to copy paste this, and you can find all of these things in my sample.vimrc file. So I'm just going to first change the command mode and then install global. All right, and I'm going to activate it for the file type, say HTML and CSS. All right, so let me save this now. :w. Let me quit it. WQ. Okay. Now here in the just to test this out, I'm going to create a new blank index.html file. So as you can see, I do not have any file here. So I'm just going to say vim index.html, and this is a blank file. So here to do that, to activate this plugin, is all you need to do. So the command is like you have to hit Ctrl+Y followed by a comma. So for example, if I type HTML :5 and make sure that your cursor is at the last, last letter what you just typed. So let me get out of the insert mode, and you say Ctrl+Y comma. See, it automatically understands that you're working with the HTML file. So it will automatically create that HTML5 syntax in your file. So there's definitely, this is one of the snippets I was talking about. This definitely saves a lot of time. So same thing, like, if you want to include a table or TR or like, unordered list, something like that, you can create your own snippets, but by default, let me demonstrate one more thing. Suppose you're creating a table here. So Control Y, comma, no, let me get out of this. Make sure that you are in the command mode. The insert mode, it doesn't allow you to do that. So if you type table, go back to the command mode, hit escape and Control Y, comma. So it will just fill that, it will complete that tag completion here. But obviously that's not what I wanted. I wanted to be, a big table created with the table row and table definition. So let me create some space here. Now if I type table here and make sure that your cursor is at the letter E, Control Y, comma. See that? So now it created your whole table. You don't need to type all of that. Similarly, you can create your, unordered list, ordered list, and you can be creative and you can create your own snippets so that you can use it for other type of codings. All right, before we start setting up Vim for other programming languages like JavaScript, Node.js, Flutter, etc., let's learn about LSP. LSP stands for Language Server Protocol, supported by Microsoft. So back in old days when people used to code in Notepad and then they moved on to Visual Studio or JBuilder like code editor, developers started building language services as plugin or called extension for these editors. So all what Microsoft did, they standardized all these language services in a protocol. It's called LSP. As you can see, all of the code editors like Atom or BB Edit or Acme, anything you can think of, all of them, they use LSP as a service. So in a nutshell, what LSP is, actually it implements language specific implementation in a Node.js like service. So every time a code editor needs something, it accesses the LSP Node.js and it gets the data in format of JSON. As you can see, most of the code editor, they have their own specific implementation of this LSP. So for example, in Vim 8, they have like, Vim LSC, ALE. You can choose any of these things to work with. Like for example, ALE. It's an excellent example. It has 12,000 stars. So you can always use this thing. In my case, I'm going to prefer COC. That's a conquer of completion. And just because it's most a popular one and it has more than 21,000, approximately 21,000 stars. So I'm going to use this conquer of completion implementation to as a language service protocol. All right. So let's go start setting up COC for our Node.js, JavaScript, TypeScript, and Angular. Now, before we include COC plugin, make sure that your Vim is at least the version 8.1, or if you are using NeoVim, it has to be greater or equal than 0.40. So I already upgraded that in the latest version, but let me check it anyway. So I'm going to quit this and let's say vi-version. And as you can see, I'm at the version 9.0, so I'm good there. Next thing is, as I stated earlier, LSP is nothing but a Node.js kind of a service. So you have to have Node and NPM installed on your machine. So Node-v, make sure that it returns something. That means you have an active Node.js installation on your machine. Otherwise, these things are not going to work. If you do not have that, it's very easy to set up Node. You can follow these instructions. Again, you can find this instruction in description below. Let's continue with COC. Now you can find more information about COC if you go to their website, and there are tons of very useful information out there. So here in this case, it's very easy to install that plugin. So all you need to do, go to your plugin .vimrc file and where your other plugins are, and I'm just going to copy paste this line here, neoslide /coc.nvim. Let's paste it here. P. All right, let me save this file. You don't need to quit every time, but just in case. So let me open it again. And here it's giving me some kind of error. Okay, it's because it's not activating the extension yet. Okay, let me continue. Let me install this first. So plug install, hit enter, and everything is correct. Then it will say it's already installed. Right, it's going to install that. All right, so it looks pretty good now. coc.nvim, that's what I was looking for. So now what it does, actually it creates another file called coc settings.json file. Okay, let me go back to this file. You can find this file at this location inside your .config folder and Vim, and you will find this file called coc settings.json, or you can just open it using this command, coc command, or just tab it coc config. So coc config, if you issue that command, it will open this particular file. Now what this file does, if you take a guess, coc.preferences.format on save file types. So every time if any of these file types, you're working on any of these file types, for example JSON or CSS, and when you save it, it's going to format that. Format means, like, for example, it's going to make it look more pretty, so it will be tab indented, or it will remove the extra spaces, those kind of a thing. And definitely it saves a lot of times, lot of typing if you just enable this setting. So let me show you a demonstration here. So I'm going to work on a fake JSON file here, and as you can see, just the vanilla coc .nvim package, what it did for me. So it already, there are a lot of functionalities are now installed on my settings. So for example, it knows, it already, it's showing me all the errors. So error validation checking is already enabled by default without any settings on this plugin. So as you can see, there are plenty of errors on my JSON file here, and it highlighted those in red. So again, for example, if you do some kind of a mistake, and if you see that, it immediately tells you at what line number those mistakes are. So it's very convenient, and it's just the JSON file here without any extra settings here, and it tells you exact error if you need to know. So for example, I'm missing those. It has to be in inside those double quotes. So I'm just going to fix that, because and then it's expecting an end of the string. So for example, it is expecting that there has to be a comma between two key value pairs in JSON file here. So let me include a comma here, and still there are some errors. So let me go include, I think it's missing a bracket. Let me add this bracket and then try to save it. So bracket, save. Alright, so it saves this the content of this file as test.json. Alright, let me try something else. So for example, here if I do, see, as I type, it immediately knows what kind of error those are, and that's a very handy feature. So let me just unformat it. So I'm going to make it a little ugly and try to demonstrate that. So right now, if I'm just going to save this, you watch this, and it's going to immediately fix all those indentation and make it look more pretty. We just learned about COC config. So what if your COC configuration has some kind of errors? So what we need to do, you just need to type COC info, and if you open that, it will show you all the errors your plugin. If it has any error, it will show you and how to debug that. Okay, this is very useful information out there, so please go through that. So in my case, for example, I'm having trouble. There are some errors, and which we are going to debug. All right. So let's go, before I do that, okay, because I intended to make this IDE configurable for web development. So I already demonstrated the JSON. Now let's go start working on HTML CSS TypeScript, etc. So again, there are sub plugins, you can call them plugin COC settings for different TypeScripts or JSON. Every different language have their own settings. So I'm just going to say COC install, and COC TS server, that's for TypeScript, COC JSON, HTML, CSS. Please go to their documentation to figure it out. If you're working on a specific language, say Rust or Go, I bet they have the plugins or settings for those languages as well. All right, so let me just say COC install here. Okay, Pyrite. So for Python, they call it a COC Pyrite, COC even for PHP, ls. Let me shoot this command. Okay, I bet I did some mistake. Continue. COC. No, I should be doing COC install. Sorry about that. Okay. COC install, and now mention those is language specific TS server. Okay, all right, I'm still having some error. So what I need to do looks like it. Let me close this and say, so that you can see the error. So as you can see, I already have some kind of it says if I need to update the coc.nvim file. All right. So here is the lesson, every time you see this kind of error, what you need to do, usually, you have to find out where your coc.vim configuration file is sitting. So go to your .vim folder at the root of your directory, and inside that .vim, you have to go to the plug folder, and inside that plug, you can see there's another folder called coc.vim. Best option is remove this folder. So let me remove this and reinstall that. So It often happens like, whenever the new versions comes out, the plugin gets corrupted. So it's always, you can always reinstall that. It's not a big deal. So let me go back to this file again. So TMP, sorry, I don't need to go to TMP. All I need now, go back to .vimrc file here. Vim, open that vimrc file. And here all you need to do, because you don't need to re-include your plugin, all I need to do is plug update. So after removing that coc.vim folder, all I'm going to say plug update. What it's going to do is going to get the latest and is going to grab the latest and greatest copy of that configuration here. All right. So as you can see now this is done. It looks much better. So now I bet if I reopen my editor and I will stop seeing those errors. So let me quit this. COC install, and now if I say coc-ts server, that means for TypeScript. Let me include a couple of other language settings like JSON, HTML, or JSON, it's a repeat. Okay, see, you should see these kind of things, like, you should see the, the active progresses, that how much it has been downloaded so far. So far it looks pretty good now. In this section, we are going to take in one real life application so that you can see how the actual development environment look like. In this application, as you're looking at my screen, it's built in two different things. Well, the client version is totally built in Angular and the server version is built in Node.js. So now before we start, I'm going to demonstrate how my development environment look like. So I'm going to close this repo in a minute, but before I do that, so Node.js application, any Node.js or Angular application, they listen to a port number. So let me go to my server environment variable here, and as you can see, my Node.js server is listening at the port 3000. So when you are working on a remote machine, please keep that in mind, that immediately, so when you are connecting to that machine, so you keep in mind what server you want to, so again, it's a remote, you are connected to that, your machine remotely, but you want to use your local browser to connect to that. So beforehand, I'm going to, as you can see, I'm porting that port number 3000 before I connect to that Linux VM machine. So you will see that in a minute what benefit it gets. Okay, so now I'm connected to that SSH into my Linux VM. So I'm going to my temp directory here and ls. Now here I'm going to git clone this repository. And again, as I stated, there are two different things. One is the client and one is the server, and both are included in this visitor management application here. All right, so let me do ls one more time. Let me make this a little bigger. ls, so client and server. Okay, server is listening at the port number 3000. Okay, so now let me just open Vim here. I'm not going to browse to any directory client to server here. So I just do the Vim, and if I do the Control T, it will open a NERDTree. So as you can see on the left hand side, there's a client and server. So it allows me to work on a Node.js application as well as the Angular application in single window. So let me open a package.json file. And as we have seen earlier, now this file .json, my plugin already knows that if I make a mistake, if I have to format this, it helps me. All my JSON specific settings are already installed. All right, so let me undo this. Let me open another file, a JavaScript file here this time. Say index.js, hit enter. All right, so here you can see I am working on a .js file here. So as you can see, it has a very nice indentation. The formatting looks pretty good. The next thing I want to demonstrate, the auto completion, or those kind of a thing. So let's go and try to see if the linting is there or not. So I'm going to put my cursor here, and as you can see, it without any extra plugin configuration, it does provide the linting information. So it's coming from the TS server here. Now let's test out the auto completion. As you can see, as we start typing, the auto completion will show you. And again, if you mouse over to those specific functions or method, it displays those function definitions as well. All right, so that looks pretty good. And this thing comes without any further configuration changes. So this thing's look pretty good. Let me cancel this out. Okay, now let's working on like those. So we have error validation, we have linting, we have auto completion. Now what we are missing is go to definition and go to the references, those kind of a thing. So now we need to test it one more time, that if the go to references are go to references or documentation is working or not. So usually there are keys you can set it up, like say GT, GD. And as you can see, if I'm pressing those out, it's not working out. So Let me put the cursor to the connector, and connector is a connecting file. So there's another file in the same application inside models folder. There's a file called connector, and I'm trying to go to that, that file. And as you can see, it says tag not found. So it's not able to find that, it's not able to find the references to other files. This is something what we need to fix. So if I do the shift key, also you can see shift key is not working either. So what we need to do, we need to include those COC settings for this extension. So let me quit this, let me get out of this. Okay. So here, I'm going to open my .vimrc file now. Let me open my, so at the end of this file, I'm going to include the COC extension specific settings. So again, depending on the language you're working on, there are tons of information. Please refer to their official documentation. So from the official documentation, again, these are very simple settings. I'm not expecting to make any big changes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to find out that COC specific settings for Node.js and Angular. So let's go back. So set update time, set no backup. Again, please go through that. These are very standard settings, and I highly recommend that, if you can just copy paste these things, they should work. This is what I was looking for. GD, go to definition, go to type definition. GI, that means go to implementation, and GR, that means go to references. So again, the key bindings are, if you're in normal mode and if you put your cursor on the file and just say GR, it will go to the reference, or GD, it will go to that particular definition. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy paste this thing, and if you want, again, you will find a link to my current .vimrc file. Please feel free to get the, if you have any trouble, just copy that file and it's going to work as is. If you want to get into the detail, these are very specific details, and I suggest to, if you want to, then please go through this documentation. So here I'm just going to copy paste the these settings here. Okay, let me go to vimrc file, and at the end of it, okay, Shift G, and here I'm going to get into the insert mode and paste it. So now let me open another instance. Okay. Yeah, so my vimrc file looks good now. Let me get out of this, Control Q, and here, okay, now if I open any server, go back to our Node.js directory and try to open the index.js file here. So let me go back, J server, JJ and index.js. Now here, if I move my cursor to say Express, okay, linting is working as expected, and if I do a Shift K, it tells me, okay, immediately where that particular, because Express is the delivered node modules what we implemented, what we included in our package.json file, so it will take me there, right? So my GD definition, go to references, go to type definitions, all of those things seems to be working. And this is a standard, any other code editor, like if you go to Android Studio Xcode or VS Code, it expects you to, for example, in this file, I'm here at the connector. So if I want to go to the, quickly look into that. So Shift K is the key. It will tell me where exactly that file is coming from. Now this is the file, as you can see, is under the models directory here. Now if I do the GD, it will directly take me there. That means go to definition. So it takes some time to learn about the key bindings like GD, GR, GY, but I bet once you get used to it, those works pretty well now. So most of the the code editor related specific settings seems to be working on my and here, as you can see, I can open another terminal window here. So suppose you want to, that's the beauty of it, like you can for example, if I want to remember, I haven't installed this application yet, so go to the CD server directory, and while I'm making changes, you can restart the server on another terminal window without leaving that window itself. All right, so let me go to the npm start here. So again, so now my local servers, as you can see, Node.js server is working on the localhost 3000. So if I go back to my local window here, this is my local machine, but this localhost 3000 will connect with my remote machine, and is going to let me just say localhost 3000, and is going to connect to my remote machine, and it will display the content from there. So that's how you have complete the you're working on the remote machine, but you can use your local machine to connect to the remote machine and do the complete. You can test it out your application using web interface. So for Node.js implementation, the code editing feature looks pretty good now. Now let's go work on our client side. That means the Angular. Angular again is another JavaScript framework. Actually, it uses the TypeScript, but most of the configuration. So recall that we have already implemented COC/TS server extension settings. So I don't think we need to do anything extra for Angular. So let's hope so. So I'm going to, as you can see, let me go to my client directory and do the installation here. I already have the Angular installed on my machine, but if you, in case if you're not, just do a sudo npm install -g Angular CI. So what this will do, this will install Angular, latest Angular CLI version on your machine. So I already have that, but it doesn't hurt to reinstall it again. Now inside the client directory, all you need to do, and let me check the version here. All you need to do ng serve. So once you do the ng serve, is going to start your application at port 4200 or any port you want to. Same thing, same like Node.js. So you can export that port number from your local machine, so that you are working on a remote machine. You can access your remote machine from your local browser. All right. So if I do ls here, make sure you are doing the directory where your package.json file is. So sorry, let me exit it. So now let's test out the Angular specific settings. So if I go and open any TypeScript related file here, so let's go back to app. Let me open my app.component.ts file, or maybe app.module file. Here you can see, so I am assuming that it will understand the linting is already enabled. Okay, so TS linting is working now. It's still not able to find the module, so because I haven't done the npm install yet. So otherwise, if I would have done the npm install, it will work pretty good. So here, syntax required. See, most of the errors actually that's intentional. I want to show you that okay, my Vim IDE is able to recognize those errors. So if I do the client and if I do the npm install. So now once you have all the npm modules installed, now if I go back and open any TypeScript file, as you can see, the error will be gone, and here you will be able to see, you will be able to find the related definitions or references, and you will be able to see that now it understands. Okay, it displays all the important component, and these are the exact things. If you go to VS Code, that's showing no magic here. Like it will show you the exact same language specific settings or references or definitions. So that's how you set it up, your local Vim IDE, just like VS Code or any other smarter code editor. So again, you just play around with this GD. So for example, GD is not working in this case because it doesn't understand the dot. So maybe there's some other specific settings. I can fix those later. Let me say no. So if I bet if I open it from app.module.ts file, the GD will work. That means go to definition is going to work. Okay, let's go to app.routing. So here, suppose if I want to go to some other file, say host add.component here. Okay, now if I do Shift K, okay, it tells me exactly where that file is. So if I do GD, here you go. So if I do the GD, for some reason GD was not working there, but it's working out here. So that's all. In my opinion, that's most of the code editor or IDE related feature what you can implement in VS Code, and I'm able to replicate all of those things in Vim. So in this section, we are going to include a couple of other important plugins, and these are mostly cosmetic, or maybe not entirely cosmetic. So for example, if you're working on a file, it doesn't tell you that the file is changed or not. It doesn't have the Git enabled. So you want some kind of a Git enabled, and also you want some kind of a folder icons. So we are going to work on those things here. So as you can see, if you go to the NERDTree documentation and if you scroll down, it tells you a couple of the standard plugins you are supposed to have. Not everything, but totally depending on you. I'm going to include these three which are very, very popular, like DevIcons. What it does, it includes the folder icons on your NERDTree, and it makes it look pretty. And sometimes people prefer to see the DevIcons in your code editor. So I'm going to copy this. Let's go to .vimrc file here, and I'm going to include, as I said, three different plugins here. So let's go one by one. One is the DevIcons for sure, because definitely you want to see the folder icons next to your file types, and the Git. All right, so let's go plugin here, and at the end of it, I already have a Git getter, but let me include those three plugins what we just talked about. Get rid of this. One is DevIcons. this. So DevIcons, Git plugin, and syntax highlight. Okay. Syntax highlight. This is definitely, I highly recommend that, you having this plugin. So, but the most important is I want to enable Git plugin and I want to include that DevIcons because those are a little hard to set up. So let me just show you DevIcons. I think there is a spelling mistake. Let me fix that. Okay. Insert R. Looks pretty good. Now include those NERDTree and the Git plugin. Sorry about that because I copied that from the Windows and I'm trying to type it into inside my terminal window, so that's why it's having those kind of trouble. Alright, so let's go back one more time and do the plug install. So as you can see, I just included those three: NERDTree and Git plugin and DevIcons. Alright, so if I go back now and try to open this Vim plugin again, Control T, first time you'll be very disappointed because it doesn't bring in the DevIcons automatically. And the reason is pretty simple, because the font this is using is different than the fonts what your terminal window can show it. So for example, if I open the same thing into my VS Code, it's going to look really different. So first of all, it's not recommended to download this repository, download all the fonts. So what do you want? You want a specific font. So I'm going to go back to this directory again, sorry, their GitHub repository again, and I'm going to download a particular type of fonts. Again, there are too many fonts. Depending on your choice, there are some. They also have some recommendations. So I'm going to download one very important font here. It may seem a little hassle, but this is what unfortunately you have to go through that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick a font here. You can depending on your choice, you can see that like what the fonts look like. So all you need to do, I'm looking for a curl command, like how to download this kind of fonts in my local machine. So let's go back. Here you go. Yeah. So option number 6, and I'm going to copy this whole command. Let's get this command, droid sans mono. Okay. So now here, if I go to, make sure you're at the Linux server here, and here in your Linux machine, just copy paste that command. So what it's going to do is going to get that, and please make a note of the font you are installing. So here I installed droid sans mono. And next thing you have to do, you have to run this script called font forge. Okay. And this is only the one time you have to do. So let me copy this. And you may wonder what is font forge. So you have to first install the font forge utility, font forge package, and then followed by you have to do the install that particular font. So alright, so look, let's go back again, and I'm going to SSH into this window again, and Control L, and here if I do the Vim again, and you'll be a little bit disappointed because the folder icon is not coming back here. Okay, so what you need to do here, and the reason is pretty simple. I'm going to quit this one more time, because remember, this is at the Windows machine and you are connecting to the Linux. So in Linux you have installed that that font. What do you have to do? You have to download the font on your local machine also, and then what you need to do, you need to go to your settings, go to your default appearance, and inside that appearance, what you need to do here, you have to say select the same font. So once you select the same font, save it. Okay, let's go connect to this one more time. Okay, Control L. Now if I do the Vim here, say VI, Control T, see that? So your folder icons are like they're here, and you will see also the folder. See that all of those things pretty. So you will be able to see most of your icons, file icons, those things here. Okay,